I'll read just a little bit from the simile of the dewdrop. Yeah, some of the similes really stress the emptiness of inherent existence, and some of them emphasize more impermanence. So it depends on the particular simile. Okay, but with the dewdrop, he says, if we look outside in the early morning, we see dewdrops on the tips of the blade of grass. Twinkling in the sunlight, they look so beautiful, but they are unstable. Once the sun rises and its warm light shines on the grass, the dewdrops dry up. This simile illustrates that conditioned things do not endure for long. They come into existence and perish in the same moment. When we make something, let's say we construct a building or cook a meal. Seems like he's reading our minds, huh? From the very moment it is made, it is constantly changing until eventually it falls apart and totally vanishes. The building falls down, the food is eaten. This is coarse impermanence. Subtle impermanence is the arising and vanishing of things in each moment, never remaining for even an instant. Due to their subtle impermanence, which we are usually oblivious to, one day they will totally disintegrate and fall apart, manifesting their coarse impermanence. But on this, I think in some ways we have more of an inclination of subtle impermanence than, let's say, people may have had a few thousand years ago, because we were all brought up with the theories of, atoms and molecules, and that these electrons are zipping around the nucleus at fantastic speeds, and so we're already brought up with the idea that even on the smallest level, things are not remaining the same for even a moment. Impermanent things change moment by moment without our having to do anything that causes that change. It is their nature not to remain in the next instant. The Buddha taught that all conditioned things have the aspect of non-existence, in the sense that they do not exist as something that will endure in the next moment. Because they do not endure, they are not reliable or secure. For this reason, we should not count on the things and people of cyclic existence to remain the same. They are constantly changing, arising and ceasing, disintegrating from one moment to the next. True cessations and nirvana, on the other hand, are permanent. Once attained, we need not fear that they will dissolve and leave us bereft. And then there's the simile of a water bubble that I thought I would read too. This same simile appeared above when we discussed the similes the Buddha gave to illustrate the emptiness of the five aggregates. Here again, feelings are described by the simile of the bubble of water. While a water bubble remains, its nature is water. Even after it is burst and has absorbed into the rest of the water, its nature is still water. So it is with feelings too. As a sutra said, all feelings whatsoever are unsatisfactory. They are dukkha. Okay. Contaminated feelings are so called because they are associated with ignorance and afflictions. They arise under the influence of ignorance and exist in a mind stream that has not yet eliminated ignorance. Because they are under the influence of ignorance, afflictions, and karma, these feelings, be they pleasant, painful, or neutral, experienced by samsaric beings, are unsatisfactory in nature. It is not difficult to understand that painful feelings are unsatisfactory. All sentient beings recognize that. It is harder to understand that contaminated feelings of happiness and pleasure are also unsatisfactory, because when we experience samsaric happiness, we think it's great. In order to get it, we try to get all sorts of possessions, travel to beautiful places, and have many friends, believing these will give us the experience of happiness. When we get what we seek, we are satisfied and satiated for a time. But if we keep doing what seems so pleasurable, it eventually becomes painful. In addition, even if these pleasant feelings fade naturally, painful disappointment arises in their stead. We ordinary beings think there is a difference between the feelings of happiness or pleasure, pain or suffering, and neutrality. We think like they're three very, very different things. We believe that some feelings are better and more desirable than others. We consider painful feelings as bad and don't like them. We believe that contaminated happiness is really great. However, for an Arya, somebody who's realized emptiness directly, there is no difference between any of these feelings because they are all unsatisfactory and aren't desirable in the least. To these beings who have realized emptiness reality directly, there is not enough happiness in cyclic existence to fit on the tip of a needle. Having abandoned attachment to all of cyclic existence, and therefore to all the enjoyments of cyclic existence, they do not seek these things and do not derive contaminated happiness from them. For example, when Aryas eat what we consider to be delicious food, they don't think, wow, this is fantastic, and become attached to it. They simply regard it as temporary happiness and enjoy it as such. While we run around pursuing contaminated pleasure, they see it as useless and would much rather turn their attention to more worthwhile things, such as ethical conduct, concentration, bodhicitta, and wisdom. However, this does not mean that Aryas are bereft of happiness. In fact, they experience immense happiness, much more than we beings in cyclic existence do. For example, they have the happiness of true cessations and the happiness of the true paths. They are close to the everlasting happiness of liberation or full awakening. For us, happiness means the short-term pleasures of samsara, the good feelings from having possessions, talking to friends, being praised, having a good reputation, and so on. Aryas are not seduced into believing these things will bring them ultimate happiness, and are therefore not upset when they are separated from them. Wouldn't that be nice? Yeah, seeing them as helpful to sustain the body and therefore attain liberation, they make use of these things. Okay, these three contaminated feelings are included in the first of the Four Noble Truths, which are called true dukkha for the Aryas, or what is in truth unsatisfactory for the Aryas. That's why when it says Four Noble Truths, it isn't that suffering is noble, it's that suffering or dukkha is true for noble beings, for Arya beings. For Aryas who have firm determination to be free from cyclic existence and have directly realized emptiness, all contaminated feelings of happiness, pain, and neutrality are the same. As is said in the Four Seals, all contaminated phenomena are unsatisfactory. While painful feelings are the dukkha of pain, pleasant feelings are the dukkha of change. Contaminated neutral feelings are also unsatisfactory because they are the basis for all dukkha. Being unstable, neutral feelings give way to pain or contaminated pleasure, and therefore considered the pervasive dukkha of conditioning. Aryas want nothing to do with contaminated feelings. They seek the lasting fulfillment, bliss, and joy of liberation and full awakening. Okay, so he explains the other similes in that way, and then he has a beautiful section where he talks about he uses the similes that come from one of the sutras in the Pali Canon about form is like it's like foam, and feeling is like water bubbles, and so on. So quite beautiful. So I really recommend this book, Insight into Emptiness.